Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing all right and are safe. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sanika Mehta, and I'm from the Arthronomics team of Jai Hind College. I'd firstly like to go over the code of conduct. Participants, by agreeing to participate in the session, consent to audio or videotapes being made of these sessions and the same being used by Arthronomics or the speaker. No inappropriate behavior of any kind will be tolerated. Participants are not allowed to unmute without permission, and no foul words are to be used in the chat box. The host will discard you from the meeting immediately if any such behavior is witnessed. Before we begin, I request everyone who's comfortable to please keep their web cameras on. This session will be interactive, so if you have any questions for the speaker, you can address the same in the chat box so he can take them up. Today, for Artha Series Episode 3, we have Varun Chararia with us. Varun is a product marketer by profession, engineer by training, and additionally, an author, speaker, entrepreneur, podcaster, and fitness enthusiast. Varun currently works as a senior product marketer at Waymo, co-hosts the Edge podcast for CHROs, co-authors articles for Money Control. In the past, he has written a book, published 5 national level review papers, and been a LinkedIn influencer between 2016 and 18 before his millennial move of deleting his account. We are more than happy he's here, and I could go on and on about his work, but that would take me quite a while. So, without further ado, let's shift to today's topic, which is career framework for everyone. Over to you, Arun.
Hey, thanks a lot, Sanika, for that wonderful introduction. And everyone, again, there are about 350 people joining us today, which is amazing. And, super grateful that everyone's here for this session. So, the entire premise of this session, rather, is to sort of give you an insider view as to what career development really is. And sort of run you through a bunch of thumb rules and a bunch of frameworks that you guys can really use on a day-to-day basis. And one of the reasons, if you've seen the poster or any of the things that the team has put out, it says for everyone, and it's got this nice view. Let me Sanika, can I share my screen right now?
Yes, yes, you can.
Brilliant. Okay. uh cool, I think. Yeah. So this is what it looks like, right? It's got like a bunch of people out there, various kinds of people. Some of them are doctors, some of them could be whatever they are. The entire idea of this is to just show that all of these thumb rules sort of essentially apply and stay consistent no matter what phase of your career you're in. And it's something that I sort of learned the hard way in some cases, but I've also done a lot of my own reading, a lot of my own research, a lot of my own application into various things to sort of come up with this, right? So I think let's begin. I'll try and keep this as brief as possible, try and sort of take you through the contours. If you've got any questions, by the way, just put them in the chat box, and I'll, with your name or something, I can pick them up as soon as I'm done, and then we can have a nice interactive session as well. So feel free. There's no limit or anything. Just be yourselves here, right? Just give me a second. Yep, I think we're ready. Okay. So let me quickly run you through my journey and why I sort of feel a little qualified to give you a thing or two about the session, right? So I started my career when I was 19. In some sense, I worked with Fiverr. Fiverr is essentially a freelance platform where you could uh, sort of basically freelance on anything and everything, right? You could be a podcaster, you could build decks for everybody, you could design collateral, you could write content, you could do a bunch of these things. And writing is something that has always sort of stayed consistent as a part of my character, as a part of who I am, as a part of my existence. Uh, I think since I was a child, right? Since the time that WordPress first officially came in India, and that's when I had a blog and all of those things, right? So this is back when I was in school. I did that, so I sort of paid to my strengths, and I thought, hey, I probably need some money on the side. Why don't I do some content writing, probably get some experience? It just might be a fun thing to do. And I didn't really have a laptop or anything. As cliched as my story sounds, it all of it is going to quite to word, right? Um, I didn't have a laptop, and I'd just gotten into engineering. So every day after college, I'd just go to the cyber cafe and I'd sit and just freelance for a couple of hours. I saved some money, and then I decided to convert that into my very first agency, which was Wiseworth, as you can see on the screen. I ran that agency for about a couple of years. We were catering primarily to enterprise clients, and it was a full stack creative agency. The ones that you'd find on ad ages and here and there, right? And during this transition phase, right? I think this was I wrote my book as well, which is the little dot you can see there, the miracle pin ring. One of the reasons I wrote this book, and I wrote this book when I was around 19, around, which is weirdly around this time of the year itself, so because the book came out, I think, in July. So this I think completes 5 years since I wrote that book. So one of the reasons I decided to write that book was because if if anybody like me who doesn't really have the odds stacked up against him, if I can do something like this, I think, even anecdotally speaking, a lot of people also can, right? And that's pretty much why I wrote it. I didn't really write for any other star glory or anything. Um, so I think after, towards my, once I sort of finished my engineering, I decided to, hey, sort of move on from my company as well, and decided to experiment a little more in terms of what entrepreneurship as occupation has to offer. And I built Ibo, which is the yellow dot that you can see there. So Ibo essentially was a bot that teaches you the basics of MBA in less than a day via Facebook Messenger. uh, it went viral on Product Hunt. I built it without any code, and I built it, I think, in a couple of days, and this was again purely for fun that I did. And if you were to notice again, the problem statement was the fact that, same thing, right? Because once you're done with engineering, the next logical step for a lot of Indians, at least for people like me, is to probably try and get a management degree, try and get an MBA. But again, MBAs are expensive. I'm, somebody who really knows his math. The math didn't add up, and I thought, why not let me just build an infrastructure that really curates information, and something that people can refer to, right? Beat anybody else. And I did that. Got some consulting experience here and there, and then fast forward today, I work with Vimo, which is the big red dot that you're seeing there. I've been working there for 2 years. I've worked there as a product marketer, and I also run this podcast.
Varun, I'm so sorry. I think you are on mute.
Okay, is it fine now?
Yeah, yeah.
No, wait, was I on mute from the start? I don't think so, right? It
Oh
was.
no, just the last 5 seconds.
Cool. Can I? Yeah, is it fine now? Just give me a
Yeah.
sec. Uh, just give me a second. Okay. Where do you guys miss me? Where do I continue from?
So you were talking about Ivo, I think.
Cool. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, I started Ibo. I did those things with Ibo, and then sort of moved on to doing some consulting experience on the side, which is another fun gig that I thought would just essentially just give me more exposure into the various aspects of the field that I'm involved in. And then I joined Vimo, which is the red dot that you're seeing there. I've been working with Vimo for the last 2 years, and I work with Vimo as a product marketer, like Sanika mentioned. And the blue dot that you're seeing there is the Edge podcast for CHR, which is something that I've been running for, I think, the last month or two, and it's slowly gaining traction. It's another side project that I thought that might really add value. But the entire point of this presentation was not to just thrive on the credentialism aspect of things, but is to just rather show the colored dots you're seeing, the ones that don't really have a logo in it. And those are essentially the side projects and the ideas that never saw the light of the day. And this is pretty much how most of your careers are going to be. Like, you have to get baptized by fire in some sense. You have to go through the journey to really figure out what you're really made of, like, as a person and as anything else. So the very first thumb rule that I'm going to talk to you about, right, is the fact that wherever you start, right, no matter what you are today, is essentially the context and the variable that you're sort of going to begin your life with, right? So, I mean, think of yourself as a person in a video game, right? The moment you're in a video game, you probably don't have as many tools. You don't, don't really probably have a lot of ammunition with you. You don't have a lot of resources. You don't have a lot of points with you, or mind your, health, or all of these things. But that's essentially your starting point, right? The playing field or sort of level, that's essentially your starting point. And what you make of it and what you go from there is essentially what it's all about. And so it's often convenient, I'd say, for us to fall into the comparison trap of saying that, hey, probably this person had it a lot easier than I did, or probably somebody else is probably placed better, or is just inherently smarter, and all of these things. But what I can tell you is that just identify yourself first, in the sense, hey, this is who I'm as a person. Fill yourself with complete acceptance of that, and then just try to align yourself, right? So inherently, be it life or be it career, it's about two things. It's about aligning yourself to the larger and broader canvas, and it's a lot more also about reducing things that don't really matter to you. Like, you just have to cut them out one by one, right? That's Hey, Sanika, I just got muted again
Yeah, but you're back on.
because I had to. That's why. Cool. So going forward, right? The other aspect of this, right? Now, how do you now? Let's say that you've taken a piece of paper, you sort of written, everything about yourself, what you are good at, what you aren't, and all the basic things. Once you've got your own existence sorted out for that front, right? One of the easiest ways, which is, and this is a management technique, by the way, that there is something called belief, bet, and future. Right? This is a very simple framework that looks complicated, but trust me, it really isn't. Um, Essentially, any path that you sort of decide to choose on should be should be at least thought through at least 10 steps ahead, in the sense that, hey, today, let's say, for example, if my belief is that, let's do a small example right here itself, right? For example, let's say if I want to start a content company, right? Take my own example. uh, the very first thing, the various milestones that I need to hit there, right? The first could be, hey, I need to probably get consistent with writing content. I need to probably get better at writing content. So my belief is that, hey, to start a content company in the next 9 months, I need to take certain bets, and the bets could be that, look, every month I'm going to inevitably invest, 35, 40 hours of my week into writing content, learning content, networking with my peers, finding essentially how this industry works. And because of this, my best case scenario, which is future option A, is probably going to be that, hey, I might actually have a good company with me that gives me good revenue. I could probably recover my college fees. I could do a bunch of things with it. Future B, hey, my company might not do so well. I might just do good as a freelancer. Is that acceptable? Probably yes, right? So that's future B. Future C could be something like, hey, none of these things work out, but I could actually build some portfolio and some experience and try and get a job, try and apply for a job at an advertising agency as a copywriter or something of that sort. So essentially what I'm saying is that to every future, which isn't too hard to predict, right? It's a lot like back calculating yourself. Um, and you're sort of assigning weights to everything. For example, your future a possibility could be 80% weight, right? And this is just something, these are the simple sentences that you can write on paper. It's as easy as, don't get complicated by anything else here. It's something as easy as that. So the entire premise of doing this is that you have to choose the path of least assumptions, not of least resistance, because a lot of things, I mean, people assume that, I mean, when you're running, when you're doing all of these things, it's convenient to show up only when you feel all right about it. But it's really more about commitment than anything else. Like, you have to consistently show up on a daily basis. You might have heard this a billion places, but trust me, that's the only way things work out. So with these couple of thumb rules in mind, right, I'm going to sort of dive into the more operational aspects of career development. I'm going to do that in three parts of this presentation. I'm going to tell you a story of the Thanksgiving turkey, a good reference, something which I reference often. I'm going to tell you. I'm also going to give you the example of the 100 years of government and how they are also mapped for their own legitimacy as well. And I'm going to give you slightly more advanced career tips towards the end of this presentation, right? So the very first thing is Thanksgiving turkey. Um, See, quarter life identity crisis, and I wrote a lot on this aspect as well, is something that I think everybody faces at some point in the other time. Because let's say that you've already begun a journey and you've gotten through a certain point, but then you also feel that, hey, probably nothing is worth it. Things don't seem bright for you. Probably nothing's working out, or even if things have worked out, it doesn't really essentially make you feel a whole completely, right? And these are things which I'd say, at least until you reach a certain maturity, which is at least until 5-6 years into a certain career, into a certain job, a lot of these things don't really come in terms of clarity as well. I'm being very, very brutal about that. So if you imagine what a Thanksgiving turkey is, right? For example, it's normally fed until like, um, you know for ages, right? It's fed probably a month before Thanksgiving, and then the moment that Thanksgiving happens, the turkey sort of just feels that, hey, I'm getting my food every day, I'm getting taken care of every day, I'm getting a nice place to stay. This is probably my life, and this is everything that goes wrong with the basic life assumptions or basic career assumptions, that if you assume that a certain degree is going to get you somewhere, or if you assume that certain skill sets also for that matter is going to help you stay relevant at least in the next 5 years, you're also being very equivalent to the turkey. And the moment Thanksgiving Day strikes, which is a good celebration for a lot of people, but apparently not an exciting day for the turkey, you are butchered. And this is pretty much how things work out, right? So even in terms of skills, right? For example, the pandemic has shifted the entire occupation in such a way that the skills that weren't as relevant, once upon a time, have become super relevant. Like, for example, frontline workers, skills, for example, that were assumed to be relevant 5, 10 years down the line, have become mainstream at this point in time. So in order to survive, and you have to like really kick in your survival instincts here, the only way to survive is to just constantly repurpose and reskill yourself over and over again, right? That's one of the very, very basic things that you need to keep in mind. But then you might ask, hey, how do I do that? I mean, I've got a lot to manage and I've got a lot to really take care of as well. Let's say, and if I take the content company example, I still, there are a lot of uncertainties that I can't really manage my own equation as well, which is when you have this simple, very simple framework, right? Called, circle of influence and circle of concern. And again, this ties back to one anecdote, which again, I want to sort of clarify right here itself, is that the impact of life on work is always greater than the impact of work on life. So let me repeat that again, right? Just for posterity and just for reference as well. The impact of life on work is greater than the impact of work on life, and things sort of percolate in the most messiest ways when your life isn't sorted in a lot of other ways. Like for example, if you've got tensions at home, if you've got if you aren't inherently motivated as a person or happy as a person or in a good mental state as a person, you won't really be able to put your best foot forward in terms of your own work as well. And the same thing at work, right? I'll tell you how these two things are connected. Now let's say that you're somebody who's short tempered who tends to jump the gun quite quickly and doesn't really have good emotional quotient right there itself. What that's going to happen is at the moment there are a lot of uncertainties at work, there are a lot of things that start piling up and you start feeling overwhelmed, you're going to react in the same way. And what happens when you react in the same way is you're going to ruin your work relationship with everybody else. You're not going to be somebody that people can trust. You're not going to be somebody people can really assign sensitive tasks to. And so, which is why I say that the more you're sorted on the life front, the more you slowly get sorted on the work front as well. And there are two ways to sort of bucket this. Right? There are very simple ways to sort of figure this out for yourself. What are the five top things in your life or in your work right now that you can really control? Now, for example, let's take the content example again, right? Let's say that you want to start a blog in the next 3 months, which will sort of help you, which will sort of act as a trampoline for you to jump and start your own content company, right? You So if you want to start a blog today, we're talking in June, or you want to start sometime in September, let's say. To do that, you need to invest 3 months of writing content, researching, finding out how to structure a blog, for example, or how to do SEO, or how to do a bunch of these things. All of these things come under your circle of influence because these are the items that you can directly control. You can find free resources online. Even if you have to invest, it's probably 1,000 to 2,000 bucks at max, even for any course for that matter. All of these things is something that you directly control. And if you sort of allocate yourself time every week and you allocate yourself certain measurable goals, right? Now, let's say that your one goal could be that, hey, I have to write 5 blogs a week, which is a measurable, quantifiable goal, and you're giving it time, which is a week. The moment you give yourself this framework, you're definitely going to achieve it. At least if you don't, you will be able to have proper numbers to actually track back to and say that, hey, these things didn't work out. Probably this week was a low week for me. Why was it a low week? You could again go back to your circle of concern and see, hey, is any of the outside factors really affecting me? Is it my own personal life, or is it the lack of opportunities, or probably am I not playing the right game, or probably should I switch my industry? Should I get better with graphic design or get better with videos that could probably aid and do things to my content? What I'm arriving at is that when you do yourself, when you sort of have this approach towards things, towards the grand scheme of things, right, you tend to start commanding things and not as much as demanding things. And when that happens, a lot of people will naturally assume you to be somebody who brings this this strong sense of learning to the table. And believe me, companies today or companies in the next 10 years will only hire basis on how much you can really learn and upskill by yourself. Because earlier it was assumed that it was the company's responsibility to sort of help you upskill and to help you do certain things. But because of the pandemic, it really isn't the case right now. Gig workers and contract workers sort of eating away a lot of jobs. You so this happened back in my time also as well, right? Let me give an example, a good case study right here. Despite being a company, despite being a well-known content brand out there in the market, anytime I went to close a deal, I signed from a client, my proposal, my costing, all of those things were directly compared to both my competitors, but to also some random freelancers who were sitting at some corner of the world and also, probably applying to this gig or something like that. It was also compared to everybody else. And this happened 5, 6 years ago when I was just starting up my business and everything. And and right now it's come to the point. See, up until the point when it was only to the company level, things were okay. A lot of things and a lot of ramifications weren't seen on an individual level. But right now your job is being, you're not competing with, let's say I'm not competing with any of you guys out there, you guys aren't competing with me, we're both jointly competing against machines, against a lot of technology that could replace us, automation and all of these things, right? That's what's happening. So then let me get to the point of defining what a skill is, right? Skill, the easiest example or the easiest definition of skill, think of skill as a force multiplier, in the sense that if I have a lever, right, I put a lever right here and I try to move it like this, the door opens, let's say a heavier door really opens with a lesser force, right? It's legitimately all this point of leverage. And the way that skills are sort of developed in the sense that, and I'll tell you more about this as and when we go on in the presentation as well. But for now, keep in mind that skills are essentially just force multipliers. The more uniquely you have different skills, and the more uniquely you bring your own character to, your own character flavor to it, the more competitive advantage you sort of continuously sustain, right? And then, think about luck. The most easiest way that I can explain luck to anybody is, I think of luck as a surface area, right? The bigger the surface area, the bigger the dish, the more sunlight you might tend to absorb to it, right? It's as easy as that. So luck and skill are very distinct definitions that way, and they're also weirdly interrelated as well. And I'll tell you more about that as we get along. So what are the 100 days of government philosophy looking like? So with all of these things, right, I've spoken about the willingness to learn, I've spoken about a bunch of these things. As complex and as scientific as this graph is looking, don't get intimidated by it. It's just proving a very simple point, and the fact is that, hey, you are consuming value up to a certain point. Let's say you join a company, or let's say you join a new office, or you intern somewhere, you're consuming a lot of value, in the sense you're taking people's time to understand the business, you're trying to understand the product line, you're probably, messing up here and there in some client proposal, or in some mails, or here and there, right? All of these things happen. So you're consuming value. But what happens between a good employee and a better employee is the fact that how quickly they can sort of get themselves up to speed. And what happens again is that, see, let me tie that back down to the circle of influence part, right? Now, for example, I joined the company in my, for the purpose of this discussion is, itself. Let's say I've got person X who's, my manager. Of course, he can go out of his way to, spend time, upskill me, brief me about the industry and all those things. But why does he need to do that? I mean, that's not really his responsibility per se. His job is, to tell me, hey, this is your work, these are things that you need to do, and that's about it. How do I bring an extra edge? How do I make his job a lot easier? Is if I can just go and continually read about the competitors, or read all of these things, if I can just form my own opinions about what's going right and what isn't. And this is a very basic general knowledge exercise, I'd say. So the moment you do this, you sort of start speaking in terms of relevance, right? You start making yourself relevant as well. And that time, the break even period, I'd say, sort of reduces. This is gradually reduces. This is one major hack that a lot of people don't really employ for themselves. Then once you get to a point where you know, the company well, you know how it's trying to operate, you know what it's trying to do in the industry as well, then you can start creating and taking a process that really bring value to the table. And I'm talking holistic value, right? I'll tell you what holistic value really means in a couple of slides later as well. But think of it as, look, you've got 90 days to really prove yourself. Every government that comes into being across the world, it's always got like this 100-day test where it's actually, tested on, hey, is this government really doing well, what could be expected of this government, and all these things. It's essentially that you've got 90 days to really prove yourself, right? But then you might say that, hey, we've got 90 days to prove ourselves, and then, we might just probably be using a job to certain get to some, get to xyz places. You might have a lot of difficulty in terms of even to make fundamental decisions like, hey, should I stay in a job, or should I probably take the entrepreneur's path? Now, I used to be in business, I took a break, and now I'm working a job. And what I realized in the last 5 years of doing all of these things, right, and doing a bunch of things, being a consultant, being a professional speaker, being a bunch of these things, right? Ultimately, the goal is that, look, I want maximum impact and maximum autonomy in my task. So the path is essentially the same. If you consider anything in the world, the opportunity of actually just coming to your office on a daily basis and just being able to work consistently, believe me, that is all what it's about. And where how skill and luck comes into place is that the better you put in the grunt work, the better you are educated, the better you are informed about technology and how to do things, you're increasing surface area of luck. And with skill, which is basically the better you get at things, like, say for example, if you want to learn design, right, and you spend the next 6 months of this entire year just, I'm not even talking every day, like I'm being realistic, you guys are college kids and you guys would probably also would want to live your life, and that's pretty understandable. But if you spend 6 um 6 months, every weekend. I'm talking only Saturdays, not even talking Sundays as well. Only Saturdays. Just spend that for the next 6 months, and you learn as much of it as you can about design in the most smartest way possible. In the sense, for example, one of the things which I personally did while learning design was that I went and looked at job descriptions of the companies that I admired. Uh, I'm talking Stripe, I'm talking Google, I'm talking Facebook. I saw the job descriptions, I saw what the levels were, and I saw what is expected out of every level. Now, let's say if I were to join as an associate designer, what were the things that were expected out of me, right? And I took this all the way until senior design director level as well. What happened because of this was that I got complete clarity in terms of what skills were really needed and what skills were needed. And you could pretty much do this across industries, whether you want to get into finance, whether you want to get into investment, anything. It's legitimately the same thing, because understand how the industry is structured, understand how each aspect or each part of the industry brings value to each other, and then you can figure out the skills. So once you figure out the skills, you just need to get better at it, and which is essentially just practice. You get better at making Maggie by making a lot of Maggie, and some Maggie is good, some Maggie is extremely shitty, and some Maggie is amazingly like master chef level, right? That's essentially how the mix works. So what you're trying to essentially achieve out of this is that, hey, maximum autonomy, in the sense I get to pick and choose the project that I like, which means that I'm obviously going to choose the projects that are amazing, that are groundbreaking, that could really make a difference to both society and to business. Impact, hey, is my skill, is whatever I'm putting out there bring real impact or not? And the moment I reach this pinnacle, whether it's via a job or whether it's via like a bunch of businesses or iterations in that front, the goal is the same. That's essentially it, right? But then another nuance comes in the fact that, look, things get messy, and I told you about this. My own journey has been amazingly messy, right? What happens in both these cases, you're essentially trying to again optimize for your own energy. Look, humans as people, we have limited willpower every day. Like, we have super limited willpower. I, despite me working 14, 18 hours a day, I also do burnout sometimes. I also do have meltdown, and it's very normal. This is going to be like a recurring part of your life. So look, work is going to consume you for at least 40 to 50 years of your lifetime, and that's a long time. Believe me, that's quite a long time. And so in those 40 to 50 years, you need to also balance out life as well, which is the more sweeter aspects of life. But then at the same time, you also want to try and bring the maximum leverage to your day-to-day work as well. How do you do that? So this is a very simple matrix right here. This matrix will basically just help you own things better. And again, as complex as any of these things sound, they're just things that could be done with a piece of pen and paper. And believe me, I've also done the same. This is a basic Eisenhower matrix. It's a 2 by 2 matrix, which has impact on one side, has effort on one side, and there are two, and there are 4 quadrants here. One quadrant is going to be, hey, high impact, high effort as well. One is going to be high impact, low effort, and so on and so forth. What you can do is you can just simply take, let's say that, let me again make it relevant to you in terms of the example itself. Now, let's say that I want to start a content company by the end of this year. All right. What are the most high impact and high effort things? I probably have to learn the skill in itself, and I probably will break down the skills. Let's say I have to have my own website, I have to have my own logo, I have to have my own blogs, I have to have my own customer testimonials, I have to have all of these things. So I just write them on a piece of paper and just stick them out there in one quadrant, which is high impact, a high effort, which means I need to at least put in 80% of my mind power, my effort into doing that, which again comes back to this part, right? So let's say you're trying to put things into the first quadrant there. What comes, and you sort of just see, hey, these are things I can directly influence. These are things that really need 80-90% of bandwidth. How many of things need do these match? If 8 or 10 things match, I'm going to do only 8 things. It is as simple as that. You just need to get smart with the way you approach things. Now, if you go back to the similar things, right? For example, let's say there are uh, things that don't really impact as much as anything else. For example, there are the other aspects of, let's say, starting a content blog could be SEO, which is a slightly technical thing, or probably even networking as well, which might not be something up your alley. You could probably just do it after you've done your 80% work. And the more you get smarter at sort of just optimizing your work and energy there, the better you start owning your own work and the impacts that you happen, right? This is essentially how things work out. Now, one of the things that again happened right here, uh, before this, I just want to show you one more thing, right? It was exact same command and not demand itself, right? if you do this at your own workplace also, right? If you in terms of your own company also, for example, these are the companies, before I sort of get to the next part, one of the reasons I'm giving this as a context, it's sort of a context setting thing. Let's say that you want to join a bunch of these companies, but you know that you're not really directly qualified for these companies yet. And so what is a much easier way to get there, like, you know, it is predictably, I'd say. So for example, let's say you want to join the topmost advertising agencies in the world, and put them just in an outer circle. The smaller agencies or the smaller things, just put them in an inner circle there. And these are the two things. Use this inner circle as sort of a trampoline to get there. Right now, let me break that down for you more methodically. Right. So any company, as long as it's offering like a digital product, has essentially four parts to it. Right. It's going to have a pre-product phase wherein the product isn't ready, and people and the company's still figuring itself out and figuring its product out and all of those things. Join it if you're either a fresh graduate, or join it if you've got some entrepreneurial experience in the past, because one of the things that happen in these companies is the kind of work you do. In the sense, you will do a lot of generalist tasks. One day you might be running an ad campaign, or tomorrow you might actually be cold calling your own customers, and by Friday you might actually be trying to sell the product itself. If you want all of those things, just make a list of the companies that really matter to you, and just that is something that you should probably apply yourself in as well. Similarly, you have companies that are probably in the post product phase, companies that have probably found product market fit, in the sense that what product market fit essentially means that, hey, they've got a bunch of customers are readily paying them, and they're also aggressively expanding. So once you've got these basic things laid out, you could probably apply to them. And if you've got a couple of years experience already working, then it makes more sense to apply there. Because how smartly you apply to companies and the kind of companies you choose as well is essentially the kind of work you're also choosing, which also ties back down to the kind of impact and effort you might have, which also ties down to the impact and autonomy you might have in the tasks, right? It's all very interlinked that way. That's one of the crucial things you guys need to remember. Which brings me to also this one, I would say it's a very nuanced concept, in the sense that opportunity cost, sunk cost, and ROI. I'd say that, look, as long as you're very early in your career, it makes complete sense to do a lot of things and to be really messy with things. I mean, if you saw my own trajectory, right? Let me just quickly show you that as well. See, for example, if you see my own trajectory, I'd done a bunch of things before I even turned 21. And I still didn't know that, hey, do I really want to be doing this for the rest of my life or not? I just took the call and I chose to do it any which ways, because it just exposed me to a bunch of things. And these were risks that I was willing to take. So understand your own risk appetite, and play it accordingly as well. But then, as you're seeing, as and when I'm reaching the more mature aspects of my own career, so I'm sort of getting more choosy with my projects. I'm trying to see, hey, how do these two different side projects interlink to each other? Could I do something, if could both my skill sets complement each other here, or could they do something bigger here, and all of those things, right? Same thing comes with your opportunity cost. Opportunity cost essentially means that, look, if uh, think of life or think of careers as a sort of a poker game. It's not chess. Chess is very strategic. You've got set moves, and the better you get at understanding the moves, the better you get at sort of playing the game itself. Think of it as poker. Poker is essentially a game wherein the majority of the win loss happens on depending on the kind of game you choose, right? So let's say that you choose a game, a small pond in which you think that you could really win, or you're like a large fish and all of those things. That becomes more interesting game for you to play, because your chances of winning just dramatically increase by a lot. So now let's say that you're somebody who's like, you bring a, let's say, 4 or 5 years of experience, and you sort of go back and join this, what can I say, the smaller company like this. Just give me a second. Yeah, let's say you join let's say you're somebody from the post product company, a series A level, series B level company, and you've done exceedingly well over there, and you've decided that, hey, look, I want to take some more risks in my career. I probably want to build a team on my own, or I want to do some of these things. You go to a smaller company, so you're a bigger fish going to a smaller pond, and your chance of winning naturally increases. Which also, again, weirdly, funnily enough, also ties back to this itself, right? Because once you're going back there, you have a lot of say, because you've got a lot of experience. You will naturally bring a lot of impact because you've practiced your skills for a lot of time in that same job, and it's all interlinked that way. So opportunity cost is that. So at your early stage in your career, your opportunity costs are abysmally low, in the sense that it doesn't really matter what you pick and choose, as long as you're just showing up, trying to play the game day in day out. Easy as that. Then come your sunk costs, which are slightly more advanced concept, right? Sunk costs is, think of sunk costs as that hey, I've probably invested 9 months into doing my trying to start a company, trying to do all of these things, but hey, nothing's working out. I'm not getting traction, I'm not getting anything, people aren't liking my content. Should I continue or not, right? And you're going to face these things time and again. Believe me, time and again in your career, in your life, you're going to be facing these things. The easiest way to do is that, hey, look, if this is something that I know um, it's not going to benefit me anywhere in the longer term at all, I'm just going to drop it, I'm going to move on. And trust me, that's what sunk cost is. Don't fall for the fact that, hey, I've already put in so much my work and stuff here, I just really want to move on, right? Then comes your um, ROI. How's ROI essentially related in the grand scheme of things, right? Think of ROI as a balance of opportunity cost and sunk cost. The better you get at trading of things, the better you get at saying no to a lot of projects as and when you grow, as and when you basically start narrowing your focus is what my point is. Your ROI becomes a multiplication factor by itself, right? Your ROI sort of just increases and increases and increases that way. So this is essentially what your career is majorly going to look like. So let me get to the more advanced bits of this topic as well. Just give me a second. Yeah. So one of the things which I say to a lot of people is the fact that think of your skills, right? When I mentioned earlier that your skill set is sort of like a force multiplier of sorts, in the sense that they could really snowball and all of these things. What I meant was that, look, think of skills as a T-shaped thing, right? As a T-shaped thing. You're extremely good at one major slab of a skill that really defines. Like, for example, hey, Varun is an amazing speaker, or Varun is an amazing writer, or Varun is great at running and scaling businesses. I'm going to be known for one thing for the rest of my life. Think of what that thing is for you. Everything else, like for example, which could probably just bring more autonomy to your own tasks. Now, for example, I'm a product marketer. A large part of my job is to just create a bunch of decks, to create a bunch of collateral, to create a bunch of videos, to create a bunch of these things. So the better I get at creating all these hard skills by myself, if I can design a deck or if I can just build videos by myself, it just makes my job a lot easier. So if I'm working with a bunch of people, if I can just design a high fidelity prototype or something, if I can just give that to them, they will be able to take and run with it. That makes things shipping out, my work a lot faster. And this is essentially what your career is. I just think of it in this way. Then comes the fact that when I mentioned earlier in the presentation that your luck is basically, a large dish that is sort of trying to attract as much sunlight of it as possible. What I'm, basically trying to also say in a very Christopher Nolan style is the fact that we are stuck in a Brownian notion of sorts. What Brownian notion? Brownian notion is basically a scientific concept. It's a concept from physics basically. What it says that, imagine you're in a tube and there are like a bunch of particles that are just randomly colliding with each other, just here and there colliding, and it just exists that way. So that's what essentially Brownian motion at its or it's probably an oversimplification, but that's what, think of it that way. You might think that if I do the more yes uh, parts of my present, yes, parts of the, my early career, that could probably take me to where I am, but probably not. This is which is where the sunk cost really comes into place, right? I hope you guys are able to stay with me here. I know it's getting a little complicated, but I'm trying to connect the dots as much as possible in this presentation. Um, let's say that, hey, I decide to not do certain projects and I decide to just pull out from them and probably, go to some probably start anew with some things that I know I could do really better in. The chance of that taking you all the way until the end, which is to bigger opportunity within that domain itself, is abysmally high. So which is why I say that up until you're like you sort of graduate or you sort of finish your masters, whatever it is, it's okay to experiment. But after a point, you will also automatically realize the things that you're inherently good and things that you aren't. And the more you focus that, the more that will take you to 10x opportunities within that particular domain itself, right? That's essentially what it is. And so this is one, I'd say, like a very, very core part of this presentation. Something that I advocate more than anything else, I'd say, is that your activities drive outcomes. So this is a basic sales rule, that the activities that you do on a day in day out basis will basically determine the outcome. It's a way to essentially predict your success, if that makes any sense at all, right? You could actually predict your success for that matter. Now, for example, I'll tell you, let me explain this with something I explained earlier, just for you guys to understand easily. Let's say that I've decided to, let me take that same old example again of starting a blog and all these things. I have this quadrant. I've got a bunch of my sticky notes out there which have my tasks and which have all of these things. Um, and every week, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to sit down and probably review if I'm doing well or not. If in 1 month my goal is to ship 90 blocks, and I want to do this consistently for, let's say, 3 months, up until the point where I have a good business enough to launch or whatever it is, right? Every week I'm going to sit down and review that. Hey, this week the goal was to do 5 blogs in 7 days. I only did two. The next week I did probably more. So you can actually retrospectively just see if your activities are really making an impact or not, and where you need to optimize on a day-to-day basis. Now, for example, if you aren't able to ship the number of blogs that are probably needed, or do any activities for that matter, that any deliverables that you're supposed to finish on day to day, you're not able to do that. You can easily go back and say, hey, do I need to cut down my screen time? Do I need to probably find a better place? Do I need better tools with me? You can come back and really be accountable to yourself in that sense, right? That's essentially the power of activities basically driving outcomes, right? It's a bunch of 1% improvements on a consistent day-to-day basis that really make a lot of difference. And then, so when you do this on a consistent basis, you sort of begin to gain mastery of sorts, and then you can just take bigger, more, what can you say, bets, which are more riskier, I'd say, right? In the sense that you could just, for example, you're right, let's say you've shipped out a lot of content in 2 months. You've got a decent blog and with a decent traffic and all those things coming in. You might as well could just start freelancing right from the side there. So you could might as well just write a book, or you could do one of these high leverage activities that could just come back and multiply your existing efforts itself, right? These are calculated risks that are basically arising from your own efforts that you're just tracking. And all of this does not need fancy tools, or it doesn't need a lot of thinking. Like, you could just put this on paper and just have like a diary of sorts. It's as it's very first principles, I'd say, in that sense. Then comes to the part which I mentioned at very first, at the very starting of this presentation, was that career is all about like alignment, right? You have things that you're good at, you have things that you really love, and then you have things that people value, right? uh, the first two aspects, right? I'm really good at it, I probably enjoy it as well. These two things, it's something that comes easy to us because these things are very easy to spot. Now, for example, there's certain tasks that I personally enjoy doing on a day-to-day basis, and whether people paid money or not, whether I'm dead tired and dead burnt out or not, I would still go out of my way to do it because it's something that would probably energize me back. And then there are things that, hey, I'm probably not good at it at all, in the sense that, I mean, sorry, I'm good at it, but I don't enjoy it at all. These could be administrative tasks, like, for example, sending out emails, or having cadence calls, or having huddles every morning, or having meetings with people. I'm probably good at managing and running those meetings, but I don't really enjoy it because I feel that it's time consuming. So identifying these two things for yourself is a lot easier. It's very evident that way. It just comes out after a point in time. But what makes or breaks the entire deal is the fact that, hey, do people really value this or not? And the value could be business value, could be social capital. Now, for example, in the context of what this entire talk itself, or anything that I'm talking involved with you guys at this time, right? uh, this is essentially a way for me to build my own social capital, right? Do people value it? Probably, right? And this is probably building social capital and not financial capital or business capital for me. But this is building capital that will inherently come back and tie to my broader scheme of things one way or another. And you have to think for yourself in that front, right? Which is why I said that you always have to consistently make effort to think in the 5 to 6 year canvas minimum. And that's where that future wala scenario comes into play, where I showed you at the very start of this presentation, that you've got to believe, you take certain bets, and you see which of them works out better for you. You assign 80% probability to certain futures, or 60% probability, and you just figure out what works for you. That is essentially the sweet spot that you need to play in. So this is one thing which I personally done, right? Managing your manager and all these things. And this is, I think, one of the most beautiful ways to sort of end this presentation as well, is the fact that, um, look, one of the things that I feel that it's important for every one of us to learn, that a large part of career development comes down to you managing your manager, and like managing expectations. Actually, that's a better way to better word to use rather. So on the left side, what you can see is a simple chart that just has all the work that I'm doing, the priority and the status of it, right? And this is from this year itself. And I've been doing this for the last year and a half. And one of the reasons I sort of went out of my way to create sort of a board like this is because, imagine in this remote world, right? A lot of people, I work with a bunch of stakeholders on a day-to-day basis. It's if I'm able to think ahead and save them at least time in terms of to check, hey, is this guy busy? Can I assign him work? Can I really reach out to him at this point in time or not? a simple, even your Google Calendar could also substitute for this. You don't have to use Notion per se. So the tool that I've used is Notion. You don't have to use that per se. Even a Google Calendar would just suffice as well. Um, so you could just have a list of your tasks like this, and if that's embedded in your signature, if a bunch of people know it, and they could just check in and see that, hey, you do this, that just makes you come off as a person who's like legitimately a team player, and that you're thinking about everybody else. You're just trying to reduce their administrative tasks, their administrative effort, which causes them time leakages. So in a way, you're also trying to make your own circle of concern a lot more inclined towards yourself. And on the left side, which is basically the I'd say like it's the embodiment of this part, right? And this is basically from my appraisal. I think this is from last year itself. What happens when you have certain asks, and it's fair to ask, right? You might have certain financial expectations, you might have certain expectations on your own career fronts and all of these things. Uh, so what I did was that I figured out three things were is whatever work I'm doing right now, is it bringing value, yes or no? Do I enjoy it, yes or no? Am I good at it, yes or no? Simple stuff, right? And I just made three different columns. It's as easy as this. And when I presented this, or when I tried to align my own personal ambition with the company's ambition, with the current workload and everything, it just makes the decision making of your peers and your managers a lot more easier as well. And that's essentially like one of the major points of careers, right? You just, it's all management. It's I wouldn't say it's management, it's just expectation setting. It's pretty much just that. So I hope you guys have sort of taken something from this presentation, in the sense that, some frameworks and all these things. And I'm going to quickly run you through my site as well. Uh, I'm going to show you basically what you guys can sort of get out of it, right? And this is something that, so this is my site, you can just find things out. What's relevant, at least to the audience here, is that you guys could just go to resources, and you guys could, and I put a bunch of these things on, and these things are like regularly updated. You guys could check out my Notion page, which is basically all the bookmarks, everything that I read on a regular basis, and I sort of make it a point to go back and sort of have my own things here. And let's say you guys
Um,
want to yeah,
so sorry to stop you. Are you showing your website right now? We are
yeah,
on the last slide of the PPT. We are on the
I'm
last slide of the PPT.
isn't it sharing? Give me a second, let me just
No,
share it.
it was on the PPT itself. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for my notice. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So just go to this site. I'll leave the links with the team here. Uh, Go to resources. That's probably the most relevant to you guys. And just click on this Notion page. What you're going to get is my entire Notion bookmark folder, which is something that I personally use. And so let's say you guys want to read up on productivity or on career or all of these things, and you guys can find like a bunch of these things here, right? Uh, let's say you want to understand how to stand out in the hiring process. I read this. What can I say? This newsletter sometime back, and I decided to just link it right here itself. You can click on it, read some of my own curated recommendations as well. See if that works out for you. You can also just use this toggle as well. You just have to click on this, and you get everything sort of categorized very well there as well. See if this is helpful to you guys. This is again, yeah, I'd say I'd probably update this every fortnight or every week almost, I'd say. Yeah, it's around that ballpark. The second bit is the books I read. So I have a habit of actually taking notes of every book that I read, be it career, be it anything else. And I'm trying to get better at this. I wasn't so good with capturing my own notes before. Now let's say that I just read this business book sometime back, I think a month ago or something. So you guys can just open this, read it chapter wise as well, all my anecdotes and stuff, see if it's helpful. And I write pretty regularly as well, in the sense that my blogs are all over the place. See if you guys can derive any value out of it inherently, and if you want to reach out as well, that option's open as well too. So I hope this presentation is useful. Sanika and guys, over to you guys. I will take the questions now, I think. Yeah.
We have a couple of questions in the chat box.
Okay, let me read them. Can you guys, okay, uh, can we get Aryan Sangvi to the thing?
Yeah. So Aryan's asking, there is an argument that says luck always favors the successful people. Can you shed some light on that?
Oh yeah, for the longest time, I also believe this is a very fun question actually. For the longest time, I believe the same thing. I thought, hey, you have to be born with a silver spoon of sorts to really feel yourself lucky. But believe me, you sort of create your own luck. Like, I think it was Two Face that said it in one of the Batman movies that I create my own luck. as badass as that sounds, that's really how it works. uh, there is a larger thing that I'll probably write about in one of my blogs very soon as well. Basically, think of winning. I'm going to this equation: winning is equal to strategy, execution, opportunities. Right? Winning is equal to strategy multiplied by execution multiplied by opportunities. अभी आपका strategy क्या है? Now let's say that your strategy is, I finished my XYZ degrees at XYZ degree at Jehan. I'll try and probably write the GMAT, or I might try arriving at one of these fancy colleges, or I might even try and get a job at a high growth startup. I go there. So my strategy is to play a game which probably people from better colleges, from a much better place in life are probably playing. So I'm automatically choosing a higher stakes game, right? Think of it as a poker game that and you're just trying to get to the maximum leverage that you can do, right? That's your strategy. Your execution comes from everything that I mentioned in this presentation, which is your prioritization, which is how you decide which activities you want to choose to work on, which is essentially all of those things, right? That's your strategy. And then you get better with it with time. Then comes the opportunities. Opportunities are the last bit of my presentation that I showed you. I took that simple framework, which is that, what do I enjoy, what am I good at, and what people value. If you take a simple framework and you just align yourself and your own personal ambitions to the company's ambitions or to anything of that sort, you're just creating better opportunity for yourself. Because even by doing little things like that, which is creating a list, creating a view of your work list, or creating a simple, making just easier for other people to make decisions about you, you just come off as a better team player. And when you do this three things parallelly and consistently over a period of time, you just get lucky. You get insanely lucky. And I mean, believe me, I also I started a podcast. I've interviewed some amazing and very extremely qualified people. And I'm still 24 and I'm doing all these things. So I'm also getting lucky in my own way, right? So that's how things are. I hope that answers your question. Okay, we've got
We have
yeah, please.
Prakriti asking, when we start with something new, how can one make the employer believe in hiring me when I have little or no background in that field or industry?
This is one of my most favorite questions, and I think a lot of people know why. Is the fact that funny story, right? When I got my first job as well, I didn't have a degree, in the sense that I had just graduated. I just written my last exam and I'd gotten the job, and my degree was due to come like in a couple of months and everything else. Um, I didn't have anything else to show other than my own experience of working in side projects and doing all these things. Point is, get into side projects. Right? Let me quickly share my screen also. Sanik, I can share my screen now, right? There's no issue or anything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Let me show you guys something pretty cool, which I don't know if you guys are already aware of or not. So you have something called glideapps.io. Okay. Now you guys, let's say you guys want to, was it .com? Wait, I think it was .com. Yeah, this is it. So imagine I could tell you guys that you guys could build amazing, cool, fully functional apps, be it e-commerce websites or be it anything else, right from Google Sheets, which is something that a lot of people don't find trouble using. If you could do that, wouldn't be amazing, and all for free, by the way. This is a tool that you can use. You can like legitimately just copy things you could create, like the next Dunzo or the next Swiggy as well, right from here. These guys not just have templates out, but these guys have a very simple text editor like this that's out there.
Varun, I think we are stuck again on the.
Wait, let me
Oh,
share it again. Uh, okay, I think you should be able to see it now. Can you see it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So this is one of the tools. Like for example, if you start building on side projects and even hobby projects on weekends, on interesting concept that you guys find, if you start building stuff like this, even for free, and you do a simple video recording and say that, hey, I decided to work on this problem statement because I've thought so and so things, because the market is growing so and so way. If you just create a story and create like a bunch of videos, it still brings a lot of leverage to the table because you're doing things that other people aren't doing. And all of these things are free of cost. Like you can find tools like this. You can go to, I'm leaving this in the chat also, by the way. Wait, let me just put this out in the open. Yeah, 1 second. So go to Product Hunt, which is a great website where you can find all these bunch of tools that a lot of people across the world are building. You can keep a tab on it and see the kind of tools that are happening, to see the kind of trends that are happening there, and just keep experimenting with the tools that come there. Any problem statement, like just take the free tier, build it, record it, tell people about it. That's pretty much how you build experience out there. Internships work fine as well, right? So I hope that helps you guys
We have another question from Manali.
Yeah.
As you said, after working for long hours, we get exhausted and burnt out. How do you cope with that?
Okay, personally speaking, my coping methods aren't the industry standard in any way at all. But I normally go to the gym. I normally meditate. I normally do more mindful exercises. Uh, Given the fact that I'm a little spiritual person that way, so reading is a great outlet for me to really sort of go into myself and try to deconstruct what's really burning me out or not. And once I identify the 4 or 5 things that really burn me out, I try to do less of it. So, like I said very early in the presentation, where life is two things, it's a reduction exercise and it's an alignment exercise. So I reduce things on that front.
I think that we have answered all the questions.
I
So
may
this
hope so.
webinar,
Yeah, I
this
think we,
webinar has truly been very interesting and
I'm
knowledgeable.
glad. I'm so
And
glad.
I'm sure we are all very inspired and you have given us a lot to think about. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and making it accessible to the audience present here.
For sure.
We really appreciate it. And thank you
Yeah,
for everyone in the audience as well. You
Sarika,
want
I'm so
to
sorry.
add something?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing
Yeah.
is the fact that you guys, you can again go to my site. You can, if you guys want to be updated with the latest trends of what's happening in the work, you guys can follow my podcast for that. I write blogs now and then on different frameworks. That'll be helpful. So just try and stay as updated with my own work as you can. It's not again trying to promote it, but it's essentially something that I've experimented on myself and then I put it out there. So none of it is मतलब चार book पढ़ा है लिख के आ गया. It's none of those things. It's like proper lived experience, I can say. So if that is helpful, I would definitely encourage you guys put in the grunt work on that front.
We'll definitely add your website for all our participants after this webinar. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everyone in the audience as well. We're going to put the feedback form for the audience in a minute. So yeah, the feedback form is put on the chat box. You're supposed to fill the same for your certificates and credits. And we're going to shut the feedback form within 5 minutes. So please fill the same on time. Thank you.
Great.